We often feel that pressure to let go when someone dies. That cultural pressure that we should be over it by now. What if we didn't have to be over it? And what if continuing a bond with our beloveds after they're gone is actually really, really good and really healthy for us in processing our grief? In today's episode of Death on the Daily podcast, the space where we talk all about death and grief and how it shows up for us on the daily, we are going to be talking about just this. Because our bonds with our beloveds, they don't just end because they're no longer here. And we talk a lot in this podcast about how grief, it's a beacon of our love. And with that in mind and honoring that, why wouldn't we want to understand a new form of continued connection with our beloveds that can also really help to sustain us in this life? Because I don't just believe, but I know in the power of understanding that role that those who have departed us can play in our life. I know it from my own experience as a bereaved mother, the part that my daughter plays in every aspect of my life, including in being the catalyst for me even doing this podcast and going down the route where I am now also training to become a grief coach. So in today's episode, I want to talk about the continuing bonds theory, which is a really, really powerful perspective on how we can maintain those bonds and just what they do for us. The continuing bonds theory came from Klaas, Silverman, and Nickman, who are researchers that discovered that when bereaved people actually maintained a continued connection to their loved one who died, that it was actually really, really healthy for them in how they processed and integrated their grief. What they did was really challenge the idea that is so prevalent in our society and so damaging to us grievers that we should get over it, that there's a time period and that grief will at some point expire, when the reality is that this grief is lifelong. And as Lois Tonkin set out in her model, we grow around our grief. Our grief doesn't get smaller. It's just that us, through our experience and us moving forwards in life, there is that personal growth, that expansion. And what Klaas, Nickman, and Silverman really highlighted in the continuing bonds theory was the importance not only of just continuing our bonds, but really of us understanding that this relationship is going to change. So actually being able to go out there and explore, what does this new relationship with my beloved who's departed, what does it mean for me as I journey forwards with my grief? Because obviously it's going to be different. And obviously there's going to be the pain and the heartbreak of that which we are letting go of. Obviously the primary loss, and then all of those secondary losses as well. All of the ways that our beloveds were within our life. But what I found particularly beautiful as I have cultivated my continuing bonds with my daughter as well as with my granddad is really understanding that there are some beautiful new ways in which we are going to connect. There are beautiful creative ways that I can really honor their presence in my life every single day. So for me, if I really center this on our daughter, Ngako Rayona, her spirit really lives on through me, through that continued connection where I talk to her often. In fact, every single morning after I do my journaling, I speak some words to her and just tell her how much I love her and the fact that I am carrying her with me in my heart every single day that I walk through this life. And so in that way, she is journeying through this life with me. I also carry her in this necklace, which I don't know if you can see it, but it's a lioness mama and a lioness cub because her name, Ngako Rayona, means lioness heart. And it was very much inspired by seeing her powerful, powerful heartbeat and that just being so imprinted over my heart from her scans. And if you don't know about our story, she tragically died. We had to go through a termination for medical reasons 5 months into pregnancy. And then I had the stillbirth and had the joy and the beauty and the pain of meeting her in stillness. My husband is Maori and her name is Maori for Lioness Heart. And it was the greatest honor to have carried her for such a short period of time and to have met her so briefly and held her. But one of my great joys and one of the things that I'm so fiercely proud of her and so grateful to her for being a part of my life is this continued bond, this connection that I continue to cultivate. And actually, even just behind me, this candle right behind me has her name on it. It's got, you might be able to see, it's got an N there, and it says Ngako Rayona underneath it, and her birthday, the 2nd of September, 2023. And the way that I see continuing bonds is just the powerful creativity that we can bring into this. It's that true expression of both them and us. What does that mean for us? It might mean, for example, with my granddad, I wear his jumper that it makes me think of him in particularly his final year. It was a jumper that he wore regularly at his care home. And he was actually wearing it in his final week in one of the 2 nights when I stayed in his room. I slept on a little chair next to his bed. And it forever just holds such beautiful and joyful, as well as really meaningful and poignant memories of my granddad as he journeyed in his final chapter. So that's a jumper that I keep safely tucked away. And every Christmas day since he's died, I've worn that on Christmas Day. It's my little ritual. It brings him into our Christmases, as he was always such a big part of them. It's him having a seat at the table alongside me and alongside all of my family. And what I love about this continuing bonds theory, apart from the creativity that you can bring in, but it's also that reminder for us as a society of just how unhelpful it is when we are encouraging people to let stuff go, when we are also actively avoiding talking about other people are grieving, that roadrunner effect that I feel of just someone zipping, either it's out of their, almost they leave their body, they disappear, they disconnect from the conversation, or they physically actively get as far away from me as possible when I speak about my daughter. And I can empathize because in our current culture, we are so unskilled these days. Obviously, I'm saying this rather broadly. There's many people who are very, very good at this, but actually on the whole, there is a dominant narrative of not being willing to go there into something that might be profoundly painful. But in us not giving that space for others to continue those bonds, to speak about their loved ones, to talk about memories, to set a place at the Christmas table for them, we're ultimately denying some real beauty and joy and love in the grieving experience of others. And continuing bonds isn't just maintaining that presence. The other thing that's really profound and powerful in it is it helps us to process through our grief. It gives a space and an outlet for grief to be expressed as and when it needs to, which it will, and it will often surprise us in those moments. I know that with my necklace, with my little lioness cub always on my chest, nearly, not quite, but nearly over my heart, I know that at any point I can hold on to this necklace and I can feel her. I know that because I've connected into the tattoo of grief over my heart, that at any point in time when I feel the pain that I feel 24 hours a day in some way, it's always there, even just in the faintest little purr. But I know that I can connect into that and I can feel her. That is my full force of my love. She's here with me now. And it really helps us to bring in, obviously, alongside that processing and that integration, it also helps us to make meaning of our grief, to make meaning of our loved ones. As well as I found continuing bonds really powerful from the perspective, and this won't be for everyone, but for me, there's a real legacy that I feel I'm continuing, particularly for my daughter. I feel that my life's work is really rooted in my daughter. It's inextricable from her. My purpose was ignited through my grief for her. And for that very reason, even though she never came earthside and I never got to connect into her this side and really understand what's she passionate about, what does she want to do, I know that in my own way, I am making both my and her impact on this planet simply by speaking our truth, saying her name, speaking her story, and supporting others as they journey forwards with grief as a part of their story. So now I thought I'd share just a few little practical ways that we can continue our bonds. And I would say this is your journey, so flow into it and go wherever you wish to. You know yourself and you know your beloved. have fun with this. And obviously I say fun if you want to have fun with this. If it brings up a lot of sadness and a lot of tears, go with that too. Honor wherever you want to flow with this, and know that these bonds can continue to be made. So there might be times where we're in a really tender and poignant space of continuing these bonds. And there might be times where we connect into some hilarious memories and think, oh, how can I take that energy forwards into my day? What little rituals, what little moments can I create? So a few ways that we can continue our bonds are, firstly, talking to our beloveds. As I mentioned earlier, I do this every single morning to Ngako Rayona. And also when I feel her there, I speak to her. I'm like, baby girl, let me tell you about this. And I also speak to her as well about what I wish she was here for. So she's got a little baby, my cousin's baby. I call him her baby cousin. But I speak to her and I say, I wish you were here. I wish you were playing together. I wish that as I see him go through these little milestones, I wish that I could witness you now toddling on your tiptoes as you step into starting to walk, and all of those beautiful, precious moments that I know I will be grieving as secondary losses alongside the loss of her. And obviously you can do this out loud, you can do this in your head. The other thing you can do, second up, linked to this, is writing to your beloved. If you were going to write a letter from where you're sitting now, what would you say? What would you want to update them on? What's happening in your life? Where do you want to express to them again where you wish that they were perhaps still here and that hurts? Where do you want to say how you're processing through, how you're moving through life without them? Just sharing anything from your heart. And this can be really powerful as well if there's anything that you feel has been unsaid before they died. It can be a really powerful space to just let those words flow and then do whatever you wish to with that letter. Third up, we've got rituals. Rituals are so beautiful and so important in grief. There's a reason we have those rites like funeral and other moments that, dependent on our culture, we step through, because they give us a real anchoring. They give us a moment, they give us an outlet. But rituals don't have to be big moments or things that take a huge amount of time. Rituals can be as simple as lighting a candle. Rituals can be as simple as taking a flower and putting it next to a photo of your loved one. Rituals can be as simple as making a little altar for them, having that in a corner of your home. And again, little offerings of whether it's a flower, whether it's their favorite foods. Again, just getting really creative with these rituals. So fourth up, we've got doing things that you loved together. Keeping those bonds going by, if there was any hobbies that you used to love together, or special places where you'd spend time together, that also might be places where there might be a memorial or ashes might be scattered as well. How can you just take a moment of presence as and when you're doing any of these things to just continue that bond, whether that's through having a conversation and saying, hey, granddad, or whoever it is, hey, do you remember we used to love doing this? You're with me today. Whatever it is, again, this is where that play, where that joy can really come in. And it can be so powerful as well, I've found, to give me anchoring into those beautiful memories. So with Ngako Rayona, it's really around places that we explored when I was pregnant. And there's certain places, particularly in Epping Forest where we live, that are really, really poignant for me, because I have such detailed memories of, for example, by this lake near where we live, of just having such a gorgeous conversation with her and sharing with her all of my hopes and my dreams for when she came into this world. So that place is always a spot that when I walk through it, I take myself back to that memory. So fifth up, we've got wearing or carrying something of theirs. So as I mentioned earlier, I've got my little necklace, as well as I've got my granddad's jumper that I wear on Christmas Day. And this can be so beautiful just for us to carry our beloved with us as we go. And I've heard people talking about how they might wear one of their mum's rings. They might carry a photo of their dad, whether it's in their wallet or in a little locket. But also carrying someone with us could be in other avenues. For example, if you have loads of music playlists, is there a playlist where it might be your dad or your mum or your sibling or whoever you've lost favorite tracks or tracks that are meaningful to you both. And finally, I'd say on these continuing bonds, just get creative, have fun. For me, one little thing that I always do is I put little yellow heart emojis in any of my messages, and you might also see them peppered across my social media. And for me, actually, it's something that I purposefully did straight after Ngako Rayona died. And it was just automatically came back in. And as I first started, it was a real conscious connection. She's here with me. As I'm typing this message, she is here with me now. And it's something that's continued. And I'm not saying that every single time I put that little heart emoji, I'm consciously connecting in to her. But I know that because that's rooted into my subconscious, in her memory, that is a subconscious cue. And it also means that when I am writing stuff that is meaningful, or when I'm writing something that I know is triggering my grief, I can connect into that heart. And again, just like she is within my heart and I carry her with me every single day, she is there as my words are flowing out into whatever I'm writing. So get creative. When it feels right, bring in the joy. If it's sad, acknowledge those tears, let them flow. And I thought before we close out on this episode, I'd share a little journal prompt. If you want to just go in and start to explore, what do these continuing bonds mean for you? So the journal prompt is this: how does my person show up in my life now? And how do I want them to show up? And with this, if you feel like they're not that present right now, there is no judgment in Death on the Daily, only grace and compassion and love. So go forwards with that intention. All this is about is understanding, because there might be some areas where you think, oh yeah, I do speak to them, or I do when I come to this tree or whatever it is, stop and have a moment's pause. So it might be really lovely to reflect and understand, how are they already here in those continuing bonds, but also knowing that even if you're thinking, oh, I don't have that much stuff on this list, they're still here because they are here in your grief. Your grief is a beacon of your love. And that second part of your prompt is just that invitation of, okay, with this consciousness, that connection to them, how do I want them to show up in my life? So I hope your journal reflections are meaningful. I hope they serve you well in your forwards path with that continued connection to your beloved. And I end every episode of Death on the Daily with a note to self, inspired by the notes to myself that I started writing after our darling daughter died. But I also write notes to her. So I thought in today's episode, I'm not going to do a note to self. I'm going to do a note to Ngako Rayona. And my note to her is just this: my darling girl, Ngako Rayona. My pride in you is lioness fierce. My love for you extends to every fiber of my being. I carry you in my heart everywhere that I go, so that even though you didn't make it earthside, and even though that hurts a lot for me, you will get to walk this life with me and your family. So that completes this episode of Death on the Daily. And if this episode has resonated with you, I would love it if you could hit subscribe, if you could hit like on this video. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, who needs some gentle support and encouragement in continuing their bonds with their beloved, then please do share this episode with them. And wherever you are in your journey, whatever's coming up right now, know that I'm here. Death on the Daily is always here for you to dive back into these episodes. And I'm sending you lots and lots of love. All of my gratitude to you for joining me for another Dead Conversation. Death on the Daily is edited by David Strutt. The music is Set Free by Katie Gray. And I am Tanya Wilkinson. And if you enjoyed this episode, I would be over the moon if you can rate, review, and subscribe. It really, really helps me to get the word out there. And if you want to say hi or to hear more about my work as a coach and death doula, including how I support my clients to navigate their death on the daily, then all of the ways that you can connect with me are in the show notes. I'll be back soon with some more Dead Conversations. And in the meantime, take good care of yourself and others. There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's some